Hey guys, it's God Bars here, the self-proclaimed hip-hop historian, and this is the 83rd episode of my series where I grab a vinyl from my collection, talk about why I love it, what influence it had, and what its place is in the grand scheme of hip-hop. Getting back to the expansive world of instrumental hip-hop, today we have another pioneer that we lost way too early, Nujabes with his beautiful yet bittersweet LP Model Soul. Born on the same day as his hero Jay Dilla, he unfortunately was another legend whose career got tragically cut short, but while Dilla famously passed away from his rare condition, Nujabes was sadly killed in a car accident in 2010 while in Tokyo. This dude was arguably the most important and influential figure when it comes to the lo-fi, study, and chill beats that have dominated YouTube the last decade. I had seen a post highlighting this online a while back, and some of the response was people saying Dilla really did it, and this is just a classic case of black artists not getting their due credit. And while that's definitely something that happens all the time, especially throughout history, in this case, I personally feel like it's a very misled opinion. As I referenced how big a JD fan Nujabes was, and while he clearly had massive influence on him, an album like Model Soul is vastly different from an experience like Donuts. This is partially due to the album attempting what many instrumental projects don't, which is blending in featured MCs and artists to give it the qualities of both a beat tape and a more traditional rap album. Of course, this idea wasn't unheard of at the time, but even with albums like Rough Draft, where Dilla does that same sort of combination of beats and songs with rappers on them, you get a completely different feel and outcome. The similarities come more in the form of technique, but even then, their sample choices and how they flip them have their own completely unique quality and ultimately build towards separate aesthetics. Speaking of which, the space and aura Model Soul creates for me is another one of those hard to describe atmospheres I can't really do justice, but I'll try my best. I wouldn't necessarily say this LP has as wide a spread of genres as something like Introducing by DJ Shadow or Since I Left You by the Avalanches, but the trade-off ends up being a project that's more focused and consistent in tone. There's not much in terms of tense, dark, or brash moments. The easy listening aspect of this thing is part of why it had such a big impact on lo-fi hip-hop. It works more towards building a mood. But while his style can be deceptively simple at times, when you really take a look at how he flips samples for a track like Ordinary Joe, you see just how creative and forward-thinking he was with the reference material. Honestly, that song is one of my favorite pieces of sampling in the entire genre, and it's a golden example of bringing a new context to the original work. He mostly stays away from more funky, grimy, and rugged sounds, and instead opts for jazzy piano loops and beautiful textures. He definitely has elements of downtempo and trip hop in his work, but his tendency for working with rappers separated him and helped him resonate across multiple communities. Also, with being a Japanese DJ hailing from Tokyo, he showed millions of kids around the world that you don't necessarily have to be from the States to influence hip hop in a massive way. He would collaborate with a mix of Japanese and American artists, the former including talented rappers like Shingo 2, as well as Sign Star and Akin of the dope underground outfit Sign. On the other side, you get American MCs like Substantial or Apani B, who I initially became familiar with through her dope feature on the first Victor Vaughn album. There's also features by Terry Callier, Pace Rock, and Uyami Hirota, which assist Model Soul in the transition back and forth between instrumental tracks and the more contemporary songs with guest appearances. Another venture Nujabes took part in that arguably was his most influential work to date was the music he did for the soundtrack of the beloved Adult Swim anime Samurai Champloo. This was huge in terms of bridging the worlds of hip hop and anime, which would become much more common in the decade following his passing. With his second album here, every piano loop and chop is chill and jazzy, but moreover, they're gorgeous and make this album feel like a celebration of life and its beauty. While I'm sure Japan and Asia in general had plenty of hip hop figures I'm just not familiar with, personally, the only exposure I really had to rap music over there that stretches earlier than Nujabes was the track on De La Soul's Balloon Mind State, which I believe was the first track that featured any Japanese hip hop act on a release by a major US label. However, while it was still a monumental moment in its own right, it was kind of a novelty song. The MCs aren't really saying anything sensical when you actually translate it, but the track is more about the initial shock from hearing these guys on the other side of the world spit a 16 in a foreign language. It's another one of those things that might not seem like a big deal now, since hearing a rap song from virtually any country is expected at this point. If you really wanted, you could sit down for a couple hours and probably hear a rap song from about 75% of the world. It's just how universal the culture's become at this point. Nujabes help show that someone who may not have grown up in a traditional hip hop household or even area can still participate or change the genre over in America. I think that's because he had such a clear reverence for the people before him and was obviously an actual dedicated student of the game. Be it atmospheric and ambient arrangements that fill you with wonder and bliss, or his proficiency for breakbeats and turntablism, the footprint Nujabes left on the culture and his fans will likely be traceable as long as the earth is still spinning. Honorable mentions here, I wanted to shout out Feather, Reflection Eternal, Eclipse, The Sign, World's End Rhapsody, Flowers, Sea of Cloud, and Horizon. The three tracks on here I love the most would probably have to be Ordinary Joe, Lovesick Part 3, and Thank You. Speaking of which, thank you for watching my 83rd video. Next time we're going back over to the south to do a personal favorite of mine, so check in for that one, and if you enjoyed, be sure to like, subscribe, and let me know what your favorite songs off this piece of modern art happen to be. Don't forget to have a great day, and I'll see you next time, okay? Alright.